Alright, before I get to Impact, let's talk about No Surrender. Kid Cash versus Jesse Sorensen for the #1 contendership to the X Division title. Sorensen was ranked #2 going into this, so I'm not sure why he needed to win a #1 contenders match. I'm pretty sure he should already be the #1 contender after Austin Aries. But him and Cash have been trading pins for a couple weeks, so I'm not going to harp on this too much. Minus the 2 botches, I thought this was a decent opener. Sorensen's getting over pretty well, so that's good. I assume they're going to do Aries versus Sorensen at Bound for Glory now. I do like Sorensen, but is that the X Division title match that I would have done at Bound for Glory? No. I would have done singles matches for a few months and built up to Aries versus Shelley versus Kendrick for the title, but nothing's been booked yet, so we'll see where it goes. Bully Ray versus James Storm. This was a lot more slow-paced than I expected. Bully Ray spends like half the match stalling, avoiding Storm, walking around outside the ring, and it would not be the last time he did that on this show either. I see what they were going for, how he was trying to frustrate Storm so he'd make a mistake, but couldn't you think of a more exciting way to do this? I was buying into the stalling tactics at first, but then he just kept doing it. This ate up a lot of time, and honestly, it just ended up getting boring. Mickie James versus Winter for the Knockouts title. This might have been a good women's match, but there was more outside interference than there was wrestling. And remember this for later, because this is going to come up again in a minute. I don't know how this happens, but you have so much interference here, with a lot of it happening in full view of the referee. There were at least 2 or 3 points where he should have called for a blatant DQ, but he didn't. If it's a no DQ match, just call it a fucking no DQ match. If it's not, then can we please dial back the interference to a reasonable level? There was so much I couldn't even focus on the match. And the fact that you had Winter win the title back?
What the fuck?
This was like the 3rd hot-shotted Knockouts title change in a few weeks. First you have Winter win the title, have her do absolutely nothing with it for 3 weeks, then have Mickie win it back, have her do nothing with it for like a week and a half, and then you have Winter win it again? If you wanted Winter to be the champion, why did she drop it to Mickie in the first place? Why didn't you just... Oh, fuck it, just play the Russo soundbite.
Oh shit! It's Russo! What the hell is this all about?
Mexican America versus the Pope and Devon for the tag team titles. I absolutely hated this match. Where do I even start with this? Whether it was the announcers laughing as the Pope sexually assaulted Rosita, or the women interfering in the match every 10 seconds. Oh god, it was even worse than the Knockouts title match, and nearly every time it's right in front of the referee's face. Sarita jumps into the ring to hit a drop kick on Devon. The referee is looking right at it. How the fuck is that not a DQ? And memo to the writers, can we please refrain from booking 2 matches with a shit ton of interference back to back?
This whole show is ridiculous!
Matt Morgan versus Samoa Joe. The match was pretty decent. Morgan doing a crossbody is very impressive, and it was one of the few matches on this show that had a clean finish. My only issue is that Samoa Joe really needed to go over here. You want to build Joe back up as a monster again, he's got to start winning some freaking matches. I can't even remember the last time he won a match. Plus, Morgan had an easy out here. You could just say he wasn't fully recovered from his injury yet, and Joe took advantage of it. Joe gets reestablished as a killer, and Morgan doesn't lose anything. I liked the match, but no one is going to buy Samoa Joe as a dangerous force if you keep jobbing him out all the time. Bobby Roode versus Gunner. This was pretty good. Probably the second best match of the night. Clean finish and the right guy went over. Thank you. No complaints. Austin Aries versus Brian Kendrick for the X Division title. The great thing about there being 2 X Division matches on the pay-per-view card is that the X Division title match does not get stuck in the curtain jerker spot for a change. And this match deserved to be higher on the card because this was easily the best match of the show by a mile. This was terrific, and my hat's off to both those guys for taking some nasty looking bumps and continuing on. Very happy about the title change, and Aries getting the win mostly clean was icing on the cake. Like I said, Kendrick as the champion was just not doing it for me. I didn't see any reason to keep the belt on him. I'm a firm believer in striking while the iron is hot, and right now Aries has momentum that Kendrick just doesn't have. I think Aries is the perfect guy to build the X Division around. I would have no one even come close to beating that guy until Lockdown at the absolute earliest. So hopefully they'll leave the title where it is now and won't play hot potato with it like they are with the Knockouts title. Bobby Roode versus Bully Ray in the Bound for Glory Series Finals. Bully Ray spent so much fucking time stalling, the match didn't even really get started until over 6 minutes in. That's half the match gone right there. Bobby Roode looked fired up, but I don't know what the hell Bully Ray was doing. Some people may call it getting heel heat. I call it being lazy. This is the match that's going to determine the main event of your biggest pay-per-view of the year, and you can't put more effort into it than this? And even after they finally got into it, the match barely even got into first gear. It was really slow-paced. The finish came right out of nowhere. Huge disappointment. I did like Bobby Roode's performance, and I marked out when he won, but as a wrestling match, the excitement level was just not there. Speaking of which, Sting versus Angle versus Anderson for the world title. Not much to say here at all. This match was boring before Hogan showed up. It was boring after Hogan showed up. There was no energy to this match whatsoever. The finish couldn't have been more phoned in. Everybody knew Hogan was going to show up because he always shows up every single time. For God's sake, TNA, change the fucking record already. Honestly, aside from the X Division title match and Bobby Roode winning the Bound for Glory series, No Surrender was completely forgettable. Very little to get excited about here, and that's not the way you should feel when Bound for Glory is next month. TNA have really got their work cut out for them if they want to generate some buzz for that pay-per-view at this rate. Did you know Bound for Glory is coming up next month? If you do, could you please tell TNA? Because I'm not sure they've realized it yet. Watching this show, I just don't get the impression that anything big is on the horizon, and a lot of that can be attributed to this company's complete and total inability to present something effectively. Take the Sting Flair promo that opened the show, for example. Yes, I have bitched many times about how these opening promo segments tend to drag on, and being quick and concise with them is much better, but that's because these damn Immortal promos constantly take way too long to get to the point. It's not about giving these things too much time or not enough time, but the appropriate amount of time to do whatever it is that they need to do. In this case, I really felt like this needed to be longer. You got Sting and Flair, two of the biggest stars in wrestling ever, hyping up a match, maybe the last match they'll ever have together, a match with huge implications, not just for Sting's career, but for Hogan's career and for Bound for Glory as well, and they just talked over each other for 4 or 5 minutes and then it was over.
You people are fools!
Normally I like TNA's style of promos, where the wrestlers have more freedom to improv and say what they want to say, and they don't sound so fake and scripted. It makes things seem more real. But there are times when scripting out promos can be a good thing, and this was one of those times. A good writer can take that situation and script a promo that properly gets over the importance and the gravity of this situation better than two wrestlers can by just screaming at each other and winging it for 5 minutes. The whole thing just felt kind of sloppy and rushed, and that's not the impression you should get when there's supposedly so much at stake. By that same token, Fortune came out to congratulate Bobby Roode on winning the Bound for Glory series. I'm really glad they did this to put over Bobby Roode, but why the hell didn't Fortune get their entrance shown on TV? You have a backstage pre-tape with the knockouts, and then you cut to Fortune already in the ring? What is that?
This whole show violates everything about my journalistic integrity.
You're only hurting the show when you do this. It doesn't make the show more fast-paced, it makes the show look Bush League, and you do this all the time. If you want something to look important, you do that by putting focus on it, by staying on it for a long time, and that starts by showing the damn entrances. Perfect example, the Bobby Roode versus Kaz match. Both guys got their entrances shown, the match wasn't overly short, they didn't go to commercials the second it started, they didn't cut away to something else the second it was over, they stayed on it. They showed Kaz's reaction to losing the match. They showed Bobby Roode's reaction to winning the match. They showed them hugging at the end. They actually let the segment play out and breathe, and when you do that, you're telling the audience that this segment and these guys mean something. And why? Because they're not in a mad rush to cut away to the next segment. They're staying on this because this is important. There's no reason why the whole show can't be like that. All you have to do is stop trying to cram in 4 hours worth of content every week. I like the Jeff Hardy stuff. Basically, he comes in to talk to the boys, and AJ and Devon tear him a new asshole. I love what AJ said to him, by the way. And that's definitely the way they should have handled this. Now, some people have said that they should treat Jeff like a star and not mention his drug problems or the Victory Road incident. These people are stupid. Jeff fucked up in front of the whole world. He embarrassed the company and everyone who works there. You don't give him the star treatment after that. You make him own up to it. You treat him like a leper who's going to have to bust his ass to earn back the respect of his peers. And until he does that, he deserves as much respect as something you scraped off the bottom of your shoe. So needless to say, I liked this. Something else I liked was that they actually announced some matches for next week. This is something a wrestling company run by intelligent people should do on a regular basis. Announce matches in advance. Build anticipation for them before they happen. Why doesn't TNA do this every week? Beats the hell out of me. Now, as far as wrestling goes, there really isn't much to talk about. Bobby Roode and Kaz had a fine match. Could have used more time, though. Velvet and Angelina had a match that was pretty boring and not very good. Half of it took place during the commercial break, and it was full of interference. And the finish made no damn sense. Angelina gets clocked in the head with the title belt right in front of Earl Hebner. He's 5 feet away. He's looking right at it. Why doesn't he call for a DQ? I don't know. I just don't know.
I was a war correspondent, and now I'm covering this!
There was an 8-person tag match with Mexican America versus the Pope, Devon, Terra, and Tessmacher. This was not good at all. Hernandez and Anarchia are terrible, and Pope and Devon have very little chemistry with them and with each other for that matter. You're not going to get any great matches out of these teams. You're just not. And the booking was awful. There was so much stuff going on here. It was almost like the agents booked a 15-minute match and then compressed it into 5 minutes without changing the script. At one point, Sarita and Rosita go outside the ring to seduce Devon's kids. I don't know why the hell they did this. I don't think it did anything to affect the match whatsoever. It was just distracting. And then the finish comes when Terra and Tessmacher pin Sarita and Rosita, even though I'm pretty sure none of the women were actually tagged in.
I'm done! I am done with you! I'm done with this entire show!
Why do you even bother having referees anymore? These are the most worthless referees I've ever seen. Every single one of them is blind, deaf, and dumb. They can't officiate matches properly. They don't call for DQs when they see them. They can't do fucking anything.
Oh, what a bunch of bull...
Samoa Joe and Matt Morgan had a rematch from No Surrender. It was alright while it lasted, but it only went about 4 minutes. At least Joe got the win this time. But there's something weird here. I keep reading in the recaps that this was a submission match. Was it? I honestly have no idea. I know Morgan went for a submission during the match, which he doesn't normally do, but I don't think they said anything about it being a submission match. Or if they did, I completely missed it. So if you're looking for clarification here, I don't have any. And then there was Sting versus Flair. You know, I was thinking about all the matches these guys had back in the day. Watching them like this in 2011, this just made me sad. I wish I could get angry and go on a big rant, or play funny sound bites and try to make people laugh. I just can't do it here. Years ago, I looked up to these guys, but seeing them in the ring now, seeing how far they've fallen, is just depressing. This was not a good match at all. It was slow-paced, the spots were very clumsy, and it was probably a lot worse in person. Reports from the TV taping said this was freaking horrible, so I'm guessing it was heavily edited. Sting wins, so that means we're going to have to suffer through Sting versus Hogan at Bound for Glory. And if you're honestly looking forward to that in any way, shape, or form, please get checked out by a neurologist as soon as possible. I did read that TNA pulled the plug on this being a singles match, and Hogan teased that he was retiring, maybe because they realized that Hogan's going to cripple himself if he gets in the ring again, but nothing's been confirmed yet. The Bobby Roode stuff was good, but outside of that, I really did not care for this show at all. The outside interference and overbooking are completely out of control. The referees aren't doing their jobs. Russo's obviously been let off his leash. For Christ's sake, can you please get someone to edit this guy? Booking that's actually coherent. Clean finishes that happen more often than maybe once a month. I don't think that's asking for too much. I really do try to accentuate the positives here, but this show is just so frustrating right now. It's almost like they're trying to... Oh, hell. Not again.